From a guy who was called Superman on the field to one of the most explosive players in NFL history, these were some of the game's biggest stars. But every single one of them tanked hard, putting an end to what could have been Hall of Fame careers. Today we're looking at 10 absolute beasts who fell off, starting with... When you think about crazy starts to a career, Odell Beckham Jr. probably had one of the most wild debut seasons ever. The guy was inactive for the first 4 weeks, only played 12 games, but still put up 1,305 yards and 12 touchdowns, leading the entire league in yards per game. The next 2 years with the Giants, OBJ was absolutely elite. We're talking about a guy who had 35 touchdowns in his first 3 seasons despite missing 5 games. For context, Justin Jefferson only just passed 35 touchdowns this season. The dude was a freak athlete who could stop on a dime and speed up faster than almost anybody. Chad Johnson said that he could have been the first $200 million wide receiver if he stayed healthy.
Yeah. And I wish we could rewind back the time and he never got hurt. I think might have been the first $200 million deal.
But week 4 of 2017 against the Chargers changed everything. Beckham ran a quick slant and jumped to catch a high pass. When he came down, he landed wrong and snapped his left ankle. The injury was so bad that he later said that he thought about retiring. He only played 4 games that year, and honestly, he was never the same after that. He came back and did have some good seasons in 2018 and 2019, but nothing like before the injury happened. Then in 2020, an ACL injury limited him to just 7 games, and by then, he'd lost a lot of his explosiveness. I was, however, happy to see him win a ring with the Rams in 2021, even though that also ended in another knee injury for him during the Super Bowl. Considering his explosive start, it's unfortunately one of the biggest fall-offs in recent memory. If you want to talk about pure waste of talent, Alden Smith might be the most frustrating case in decades, and his downfall had nothing to do with what happened on the field.
NFL linebacker Alden Smith is now out of a job. The San Francisco 49ers have announced they are releasing him in light of Smith's most recent arrest.
Former 49er Alden Smith has been arrested once again in San Francisco, this time for violating a court order.
It says here Smith was given 3 years of probation in July of 2014 following convictions for drunken driving. By the way, if you remember that, Max, he was drunken driving at 7 in the morning. I mean, it's when kids go to school.
As a rookie in 2011, Smith put up 14 sacks without even starting in a single game. Think about that. He was on and off the field and still wrecking quarterbacks every week. Smith set the record for most sacks in his first 2 years, beating out Reggie White. Yeah, for real, he was that good. He still got 33.5 sacks in those first 2 seasons. I mean, think about how good Micah Parsons has been, and he only had 26.5 sacks in his first 2 years. I'm saying only in quotation marks because that's pretty damn good. But since his crazy 2012 season, Smith basically had some kind of off-field mess every single year. His playing time started dropping really fast. 11 games in 2013, just 7 in 2014, and 9 with the Raiders in 2015. Then he got suspended for 4 straight seasons from 2016 to 2019. He did have a small comeback with 5 sacks for Dallas in 2020, but if you look up his legal issues online, that list is longer than most players' career highlights. Here's a name that you might do a double take on if you don't remember the mid-2000s Seahawks. Lofa Tatupu was elite for his first 3 seasons. Then he basically disappeared. He came in and immediately made an impact as a rookie, leading the Seahawks in tackles on their way to the franchise's first Super Bowl appearance. The guy could blow up running backs and fullbacks coming through the hole, but also cover receivers as well as anybody.
Drafting Lofa Tatupu was a huge part of why the Seahawks finally reached the Super Bowl for the first time.
His best season was in 2007 when he recorded 109 tackles, 4 interceptions, had 3 forced fumbles, and recorded a sack. The most crazy performance might have been against the Eagles that year when he had 11 tackles and 3 interceptions in a single game. 3 picks as a linebacker? You don't really see that happening too often. Over those first 3 seasons, Tatupu had 3 Pro Bowl selections, 1 All-Pro first team nod, and 8 total interceptions. He looked like he was going to be one of the top linebackers in the NFL for many years to come. But 2008 brought injuries, and everything went downhill fast. In 2009, he tore his left pectoral muscle against Arizona, and he was out for the year. Seattle released him in 2011 when they couldn't agree on a new contract. Atlanta signed him to a 2-year, $5.75 million deal towards the beginning of 2012, but he tore his pec again before the season started and was cut shortly after. Just like that, he was out of the league and never returned. Anthony Barr's story is frustrating because you could see exactly what this guy was capable of, but his body just would not cooperate. As a rookie in 2014, he showed serious promise with 70 tackles, 4 sacks, and 3 fumble recoveries, including one that he took back for a touchdown to win the game against Tampa Bay in overtime.
Javian Jenkins starts this one off to Javian Jenkins, who loses the football, recovered, back the other way to the end zone.
Unfortunately, Barr tore his meniscus late in the season and missed the final 4 games, but that did not stop him from making 4 straight Pro Bowls after his rookie year, which is pretty solid consistency. The guy was a great athlete and an excellent run stopper. When it came to blitz situations, he could really get after the quarterback as well. At the time, you would have expected Barr to keep making Pro Bowls for years. He had all the tools, the athleticism, the football IQ, the ability to impact games in multiple ways, but chronic knee issues started piling up, dating back to that meniscus tear in his rookie year. Then 2020 became a nightmare for him. First, he got placed on the COVID list. Then in week 2, he tore his pec muscle and missed the final 14 games of the year. And similar to what happened with Todd Gurley, those knee problems, they just started piling up and his body couldn't perform at the same level that it did in the past. Now here's a crash that you could probably see coming from a mile away. Ezekiel Elliott's fall off is basically what happens when you run a guy straight into the ground and Father Time comes knocking. Elliott exploded as a rookie, leading the entire league in carries, yards, and yards per game. First team All-Pro, 3rd in MVP voting. The dude was electric, and he looked like he was going to carry Dallas for the upcoming years.
Ezekiel Elliott, he's a guy, we played against him this year. He runs extremely hard, extremely strong, a lot of speed.
Who do you think is the best running back in the NFL as we speak?
Well, I mean, you'd have to say Elliott.
He grabbed rushing titles in 2016 and 2018 and would have had a great chance to win it in 2017 too if he hadn't missed time. But you could watch this decline in real time. It was very consistent and predictable. Elliott went from 108.7 yards per game in his first year down to 98.3, then 95.6, 84.8, and by 2020, he was down to just 65.3 yards per game. There hasn't been a single year since his rookie season when his yards per game didn't decline. Compare that to guys like Adrian Peterson or LaDainian Tomlinson, for example. They had ups and downs with their yards per game, but not this straight of a drop-off. The Cowboys just simply ran him into the ground. Over 350 touches in 3 of his first 4 seasons, and he didn't drop below 250 until his 7th year. Add in over 600 touches in his last 2 years at Ohio State, and it's no surprise what happened, really. But sometimes the most gifted guys end up being the biggest headaches. Javian Clowney was one of the most hyped defenders coming out of college. I mean, remember that insane hit in the Outback Bowl? The dude looked like he was built in a lab. At 6 feet 5 inches tall and 266 pounds, running a 4.53 40-yard dash at the combine, Clowney was basically the perfect pass rusher. Playing next to J.J. Watt in Houston should have been unstoppable, but his rookie year was a mess. Only 4 games, 0 sacks, and he was injured for the majority of the year. The knock on him in college was that he was crazy talented, but he didn't always work the hardest, and that certainly followed him to the pros. Don't get me wrong, Clowney did have his moments. 3 straight Pro Bowls from 2016 to 2018 with 9.5 sacks in 2017 and 9 in 2018. That game against the Colts in 2018 where he had 2 sacks and a fumble recovery for a touchdown was great, but he never put up the big numbers that grabbed headlines. Plus, he's only played every game in 2 out of his 11 years. Clowney did have a good year with the Ravens in 2023, but it was nothing game-changing. When you see what Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack turned into from that same draft class, you just can't help but wonder what could have been. All right, here's what happens when a guy gets paid and just stops caring. Albert Haynesworth was the 4th defensive tackle taken from a loaded 2002 draft, but for 2 short years, he was clearly one of the best. In 2007 and 2008, he made the All-Pro first team and was a Pro Bowler, even finishing in 2nd for Defensive Player of the Year voting in 2007. The best comparison I can give you is Ndamukong Suh. Basically the same player, except Suh actually cared more. There are many things that Haynesworth is remembered for, but one of the biggest is when he stomped on Andre Gurad. Like I said, pretty much the same player as Suh.
He jams his helmet into the turf to start with about 3 times, and then at the end of this is when he makes the kick.
Haynesworth was so big and strong that he just mauled offensive linemen. In 2008, the Titans went 13-3, partly because of his dominance. They had the second best defense in points given up, allowing just 234, and this is even with Vince Young losing that starting quarterback position to Kerry Collins. At 27 years old, Haynesworth was one of the best defenders in the league, but by the age of 29, he was done. After 2009, he started just 6 more games and was out of the league by the end of the 2011 season. Washington paid him $100 million to be in a system that really didn't fit his strengths, and you could tell he completely lost his love for the game and just didn't care. But even Haynesworth's fall off was pretty basic compared to our next guy up. We've talked about players who fell off because of injuries or work ethic, but Deshaun Watson is in his own category. At this point, many people forget how good he actually was. Watson was picked 12th overall in 2017 and looked solid right away with a 103 passer rating in his first 7 games before getting hurt. But once he got healthy again, the guy was electric for 3 straight years.
You know, everybody talk about that. He got the MJ factor to him. You know what I mean? When he come to your field, he balling like he Jordan.
He had a wild game against Atlanta in 2019, 426 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a perfect 158.3 passer rating. And in 2020, he led the entire league in passing with 4,823 yards, throwing 33 touchdown passes to just 7 interceptions, and made his 3rd Pro Bowl appearance. At age 25, he was going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Then everything fell apart in 2021.
The high-profile attorney suing Texan star Deshaun Watson says he is now representing 12 women.
The NFL confirming it is investigating the allegations against Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson.
Cleveland traded for him in 2022 and gave him $230 million fully guaranteed, which has to be the worst contract of all time. Since then, he's never played more than 7 games in a year, never thrown for more than 1,200 yards, and never had more than 8 total touchdowns. The Browns basically took $250 million and lit it on fire. If you guys want to see pure explosiveness, you got to go watch Jamal Charles highlights. This guy was lightning in human form. The dude averaged 5.4 yards per carry over his entire career on more than 1,400 attempts, which is crazy to think about. Charles had a slow rookie year, just 357 yards and 2 starts, but by his 2nd season, he was already showing that special burst. He led the league in yards per carry with 5.9, putting up 1,417 all-purpose yards and 8 total touchdowns, despite only starting in 10 games.
In Pittsburgh, we call it contact balance, meaning regardless on how hard or your anticipation on you hitting this guy, they're able to bounce off a hit. Jamal Charles is one of those guys.
Charles was the most exciting player in the league when he was healthy. In 2010, he had the longest run of the year with an 80-yarder against the Rams. But his most insane performance came in 2013 against Oakland when he had a rushing touchdown plus 195 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns in a 56-31 beatdown.
Smith, fake the run, the throw to Jamal Charles, and Charles now a foot race. Goodbye, Jamal Charles.
Charles was on his way to becoming a Hall of Fame talent. He racked up 9,122 yards from scrimmage and 57 touchdowns in his first 7 years. And remember, the Chiefs were a mess for a lot of his time there. But injuries became more and more of a problem for him, just like many others on this list today. He tore his ACL in 2011, had 3 great comeback years, and then after 2014, never hit 1,000 yards again. Week 5 of 2015, he tore his ACL again, and that was basically it. Pure talent and an amazing player to watch, but his knees just could not hold up. But Cam Newton might be the craziest on this list because he was on top of the football world in 2015 and then everything changed. He burst onto the scene as a rookie and immediately started destroying records, throwing for 4,051 passing yards and rushing for 14 touchdowns in his first season. He had the whole Superman Cam thing going on, but 2015 was when he truly lived up to it. In that MVP season, he had 3,837 passing yards, 35 touchdowns to just 10 interceptions, plus 636 rushing yards and 10 more scores.
In the backfield, Newton on the quarterback draw, diving into the end zone for the touchdown.
This is the greatest and best red zone threat our game has ever seen.
He's just a genetic freak almost. You know, he's 6'6", 260 pounds with, 4% body fat. You can't create that in the lab.
Then Super Bowl 50 came and changed everything. Von Miller and that Broncos defense made Newton's life hell. That image of Cam getting stripped and not diving for that fumble is impossible to forget. After that game, he was never the same player. The Superman cape fell off and it never went back on. So that was 10 players who completely fell off. But I want to know in the comment section down below, did anybody come to mind for you guys when you click on this video that I did not cover? Let me know and hit that subscribe button for more content like this.